Jesus Christ. Give him all the praise, all the honor, all the glory, all the adoration that is due unto his holy name. For it's a good thing to give thanks to the Lord and to sing praises unto the Most High. Let's magnify his holy name. Well, give him praise and honor. Let's adore him. Let's exalt his holy name. He's worthy of our praise. He's worthy of our honor. He's worthy of our adoration. Bless his holy name. Magnify him for his faithfulness that endures forevermore. Let's give him all the glory. Let's give him all the praise for his mercies that are made new every morning. Father, we have come before you this morning to say thank you, for the testimony of life which you have granted us. We magnify your holy name, the testimony of life in our Lord Jesus Christ. Father, we have returned, Father, this morning to say thank you, to bless your holy name. We have come with a heart of joy. We have come with a heart of gladness. We have come rejoicing because you have granted us peace. You have given us everlasting joy. Father, we return, Father, all the glory to you. Father, we return all the praise to you. There's none like you. There's none beside thee. We have seen your good hand in to us. Blessed be your holy name. You have taken us from one level of honor, from one level of glory to higher levels. Father, we are saying thank you. Father, we are saying thank you. Blessed be your holy name. You have granted us life, life in Christ, more abundantly. You have opened our eyes to behold wondrous things out of thy law. Father, we are saying thank you. Blessed be your holy name. By your grace, we are in your presence this morning, here in this tabernacle, lifting up holy hands and voices, saying thank you, Father. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Father, for life, for health, for strength, for vitality. We give you all the praise for all that you have done for us. You have kept us. We are full of joy. You have satisfied us with good things. Blessed be your holy name. Blessed be your holy name. You are the reason why we are here. You are the reason why we have life in our system. Blessed be your holy name. We magnify you, Father. Take praise, take all the honor, take all the glory. Masekotoria, Zekowa Hikeseturia. Thank you, Jehovah. In Jesus Christ's precious name, we have given thanks.
Glory be to God in the highest. Amen. Glory be to God in the highest. Amen. For his mercies endure forever. Amen. For his mercies endure forever. Amen. Glory be
to God in the highest. Amen.
Glory to God.
Glory be to God in the highest. Amen.
For his mercies
endure forever.
Amen. His mercies endure forever.
Amen.
Glory be to God.
Glory be to God in the
and forever.
Amen.
For his mercies endures, endures forever. For his mercies endures, forever. Amen. Lord, you are so good. Blessed be your name. Lord, you are so good. Blessed be your name. In heavens you are the Lord. On earth you reigneth forever. Oh Lord, how great thou art. Blessed be your name. Lord, you are so good.
Lord, you are so good.
Blessed be your name. Lord, you are so good.
Lord, you are so good.
You are so good to me. Oh, in heaven,
You are the Lord.
you reign forever, on earth. Oh, Lord, blessed be your name. Lord, you are so good.
You are so good.
You are so good to me. Oh, Lord, you are so good.
You are so good.
Blessed be your name. In heaven you are the Lord. You reign forever and ever. Oh Lord, blessed be your name. My Lord, you are so good. Let's touch your day, Lord, you are so good. Lots of shit, in heaven, on earth you reign forever. Oh Lord, blessed be your name. Lord, you are so good to me. From January to December, oh Lord, you are so good. Every moment in heavens you are the Lord. On earth you reign. Oh Lord, blessed be your name. Lord, you are so good. Blessed be your name. Lord, you are so good. Blessed be your name. In heaven, on earth you reign. Oh, blessed be your name. My God, you are so good to me. Yes, you are so good. Lord, you are so good. Blessed be your name. In heavens you are the Lord. Oh, nature reign. Oh, Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name. Lord, you are so good. You are so good to me. Lord, you are so good. You are so good in my life. In heavens you are the Lord. Oh, yes, you reign forever. Oh, Lord, I go down, Lord. My God, you are so good. Blessed be your name.
My case is different, and let the Redeemer of the Lord say so. Please, you may be seated. In a moment, we shall be rising up on our feet this morning in thanksgiving, and when we rise, we shall be saying, Father, thank you for causing everyone who desires to be married amongst us in the winner's family to be supernaturally connected to their marital destinies. In the book of Genesis chapter 24, verses 13 to 21, the Bible gives us an account of how Isaac supernaturally got a wife. Placing special emphasis on verse 21, the Bible says, and the man wondering at her held his peace to wit whether the Lord had made his journey prosperous or not. With this understanding, I'd like us to rise up on our feet this morning and begin to appreciate God. We'll be saying, Father, thank you for causing everyone who desires to be married amongst us in the winner's family to be supernaturally connected to their marital destinies. Lift up your voices for all the marriages in this church. Lift up your voices this morning and begin to appreciate God for causing everyone who desires to be married amongst us in the winner's family to be supernaturally connected to their marital destinies. Lift up your voices. If God is the one that is behind all the marriages in this church, lift up your voices and begin to appreciate God this morning. Let God hear your voice of thanksgiving this morning, and you are saying, Father, thank you for causing everyone who desires to be married among us in the winner's family to be supernaturally connected to their marital destinies. Father, we thank you for divine connections. Lord, thank you for making all the marriages possible in this church. Father, we thank you this morning for causing everyone that desires to be married amongst us in the winner's family. Thank you for supernaturally connected them to their marital destinies. That is our thanksgiving line this morning. Let's begin to appreciate God. Remember, thanksgiving is an application for more. Let's appreciate God this morning. Let heaven hear your voice of thanksgiving this morning. You are thanking God for causing everyone who desires to be married amongst us in the winner's family to be supernaturally connected to their marital destinies. God is well able to do it for everyone that desires to be married. That is why this morning in thanksgiving, believing that God is able to connect everyone that desires to be married, to be connected to their marital destinies this morning. Let heaven hear your voice. Let heaven hear your voice of thanksgiving. Let heaven hear your voice of thanksgiving. God has done it for you or any member of your family, any member of your service group this morning. Lift up your voices in appreciation this morning. Let's appreciate God for his power to be able to connect everyone that desires to be married, to be supernaturally connected to their marital destinies, just like he did for Isaac and Rebekah. Father, in the name of Jesus, we are thanking you this morning for causing everyone who desires to be married amongst us in the winner's family worldwide. Thank you for supernaturally connecting them to their marital destinies. That is our thanksgiving line this morning. That is our prayer line this morning. Father, we thank you for causing everyone who desires to be married amongst us in the winner's family worldwide to be supernaturally connected to their marital destinies. Let's appreciate God this morning. Let's thank him for all the marriages, and let's thank him for the ones that shall yet happen. Let's appreciate him this morning. Let's thank him in the spirit this morning, because when we thank him in the spirit, we are giving him thanksgiving well. Zikato prekate keshidelia landa da la braba la braba setelia raba shingaria raba satelia legate kesekete kashikaria raba sandalaba. You are trusting God to be supernaturally connected to your marital destiny this morning. Lift up your voices in appreciation. Lift up your voices in appreciation. Let's begin to thank our Father this morning. Lipra gararobo shikaria landa rada la braba kateke sodolia gagara la galele geria la bo setele prekerebo shindalia laba. Father, we thank you this morning. In Jesus' precious name, we have given thanks. Please, you may be seated.
My case is different. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so. We shall be thanking God, saying, Father, thank you for turning all our new converts of the year into instant and active disciples of Christ, thereby leading others to Christ. John chapter 4, verse 29 and verse 39. In verse 29, the Samaritan woman said, come see a man who told me all things that ever I did. And in verse 39, the Bible says, many Samaritans believed on him because of the saying of that woman. Let's rise up to our feet and let's raise our voices and thank God from the depth of our heart. Let's thank him from the depth of our heart. Father, we thank you for turning all our new converts of the year into instant and active disciples of Christ, thereby leading others to Christ. We give you all the glory. We appreciate you. We exalt your holy name. We honor you. We adore you. We magnify your holy name for turning all our new converts of the year into instant and active disciples of Christ, thereby leading many others to Christ. Father, we return all the glory. We bless your holy name. We give you all the glory and praise. We thank you. Thank you, O Lord, for turning all our new converts of the year into instant and active disciples of Christ, thereby leading others to Christ. We celebrate you. We are grateful. We honor you. We are grateful. We magnify your holy name. We are grateful for turning all our new converts of the year into instant and active disciples of Christ, thereby leading many others to Christ. Father, we give you praise, oh Lord. We celebrate you, we honor you, we adore you. We magnify your holy name. We thank you, everlasting Father, for turning all our new converts of the year into instant and active disciples of Christ, thereby leading many others to Christ. In the mighty name of Jesus, we bless your holy name. We give you all the glory. We are grateful. We are grateful. We bless your holy name. We are grateful. We thank you. We recognize this as your good hand. Father, we give you praise. We give you all the glory. We magnify your holy name for turning all our new converts of the year into instant and active disciples of Christ, thereby leading many others to Christ. In the mighty name of Jesus. Father, we bless your holy name. We are grateful. We bless your holy name. We exalt your holy name. We thank you, Lord. We thank you, King of glory. We thank you, Lord of lords. We thank you, I am that I am, for turning all our new converts of the year into instant and active disciples of Christ, thereby leading many others to Christ. Be thou exalted and glorified. Be thou exalted and magnified. We are grateful. We honor you, Lord. We are grateful. We magnify your holy name. We are grateful. We bless your holy name. We are grateful for turning all our new converts of the year into instant and active disciples of Christ, thereby leading others to Christ. Father, we give you all the glory. We exalt your holy name. We honor you. We adore you. We magnify your holy name. We celebrate your faithfulness. Thank you, everlasting Father. Thank you, King of glory, for turning all our new converts of the year into instant and active disciples of Christ, thereby leading many others to Christ. Father, we celebrate you. We are grateful, O Lord. We honor you, Lord. We are grateful. We magnify your holy name. We give you praise. Thank you, everlasting Father. Thank you, King of glory. Thank you, Lord of lords, for turning all our new converts of the year into instant and active disciples of Christ, thereby leading others to Christ. Father, we give you all the glory. We bless your holy name. Let's thank him in his spirit. As we do so, we are doing it well. Lebrana gosie gala, abarada ya tadia, alabrana mosi galia katalia bredeo, erigede gene gosia gagadia lapa, ambrano gesugerie gelebre, gagaburana dosidadia datalia galapa, erinado sontolie gelegenebo, marinado, aglakati alapali abrada, bere nodo, ayatalia gada, ablagadim rodobos kendele kuti breyana, agaga negaro talia bala, bele genemo, Abranamo Sigalia Kata, Lembrado Sindalia. Father, we give you all the glory. Thank you, everlasting Father. In Jesus' mighty name, we have given thanks. We may be comfortably seated.
My case is different.
Let the Lord say so. Shortly again, we will rise to give God thanks and say, Father, thank you for causing everyone sick amongst us in the winner's family to be made whole by the power of your word. Psalm 107, verse 20, it sent his word, and it would heal them and deliver them from their destruction. Let's be on our feet and begin to give God thanks from the depth of our heart for what he did all through the year. Father, thank you for causing everyone sick amongst all the winner's family to be made whole by the power of your word. Let's thank him. Let's thank him. There is healing in his word. There is deliverance in his word. And we experience all of that. Let's thank him. Let's thank him. Let's thank him. Let's give God thanks. Let's appreciate him this morning. He's worthy of our praise. He is worthy of our thanksgiving. He has made us perfectly whole. Father, we thank you. We give you praise. We magnify your name. There is none like you, Jesus. Thank you for the healing in your word. Thank you for the deliverance in your word that has made us whole all through the year. Hallelujah. Thank him. Thank him. Thank him. Thank him. Father, we have come to give you thanks this morning. We have got all the praise due to your name. Father, we thank you. Thank you for causing everyone sick amongst us in the winner's family to be made whole by the power of your word. Let's thank him. Let's thank him. Let's thank him. Let's thank him. Let him hear your voice of thanksgiving. If his word has made you whole, thank him. Thank him. Thank him. Father, thank you. Thank you for the power of your word. Thank you, Lord, for the healing and the deliverance packaged in your word that has made us whole all through the year. Father, we thank you. Father, we thank you. Father, we thank you. Give him thanks. Give him thanks. Let him hear your voice of thanksgiving. Thank him. Thank him. Thank him. From the point of view of good health, let's thank him this morning. Letu Shaborata, Ekorando, Bradozia, Alesha Talobalo. Thank him. Let him hear your voice. Father, we have come to give you all the praise. We have come to give you all the glory for causing everyone sick amongst us in the winner's family to be made whole by the power of your word. Let him hear your voice. Yes, Lord, you are worthy of our thanksgiving, and we have come this morning to give it to you. Give him thanks. Thank him. Thank him. Thank him. Father, thank him. With a loud voice, let's give God thanks. Let's give God thanks. Let's give God thanks. Let's thank him. Let's thank him. Oh, yes. Yes, your Lord, you are worthy. You are worthy of our thanksgiving and praise. And so, Lord, take all the praise. Take all the glory. Are you sure? God is hearing your voice of thanksgiving. Thank him deeply. Thank him deeply. Thank him deeply in your understanding and in the Holy Ghost. Elush alo paron de kotalondea. Baberose etorando. Ababene kosanto ladea. Yeko erosi atalande. Waberozia eshakata. Ababarode lekonama. Yetuzia esha lata. Arozano palanda. Paparo eteno. Aze lekona. Intaronde. Ye prosanolosha. Abaletozi. Zekoranda. Irabosha. Ekleno. Letoza. Yatane. Ekotabalo. Ezuziano. Yeketoria. Ashane kolande poranda. Ezaze. Letola. Ababarate. Yekonamanosha. Ekletozazo. Eruziale. Etanoba. Babani, Letani, Ikolande, Azuze, Retolada, oh Papa Latesindea. Yes, Father, we thank you. We give you praise. And in Jesus' name, we have given God thanks. Please be seated.
case is different, and let the redeemed of the Lord say so. Be rising up shortly to pray, saying, Father, by the Holy Ghost, empower my prayer and fasting life into next levels. Can I hear amen to that? So I can continue to grow in power and command higher levels of spiritual authority. Ezekiel chapter 47 and verse 1 to 5. Afterward, he brought me again to the door of the house, and behold, waters issued from under the threshold of the house eastward. And we know the waters issued to the ankle level. That's one level. To the knee level, another level. To the loins, and then to the waters that cannot be passed over. Let's rise on our feet this morning as you and I pray for ourselves. Father, by the Holy Ghost, empower my prayer and fasting life into next levels so I can continue to grow in power. Oh yes, that's the only language the devil understands is power, so I can continue to grow in power and command higher levels of spiritual authority. Lift your voice. No one can pray this prayer for you like you can pray for yourself. Father, by the Holy Ghost, empower my prayer and fasting life into next levels. Yes, I must change levels in the school of power. Lift your voice this morning. Let heaven hear your voice. Father, empower my prayer and fasting life. Give me greater spiritual stamina. Raise your voice. Let heaven hear you this morning. By the Holy Ghost, empower my prayer and fasting life. That's how Jesus kept changing level in the school of power. Father, I want to keep changing level all through the year 2017 and beyond in the school of power by empowering my prayer and fasting life into next levels. Yes, I want to keep growing in power. Raise your voice. Hear you this morning and command higher levels of spiritual authority. Yes, with results to show. Raise your voice this morning all over this place. Let heaven hear your voice. Father, I don't want to remain at this level. I want to keep changing levels in the school of power by an enhanced prayer and fasting life. Rototekezia, retezus. Remember, the prayer altar is the altar of helps. There is help available for you and I on the altar of prayer this morning. Father, by the Holy Ghost, empower my prayer and fasting life into next levels. Yes, the spirit is willing, but many times the flesh is weak. Lord, empower my prayer and fasting life to next levels so I can keep growing in power and commanding higher levels of spiritual authority. Raise your voice if you can pray in the language of the Holy Ghost. Do so right now this morning. He that prayeth in an unknown tongue, prayeth better. Push this prayer in the Holy Ghost this morning. Radetosi yakotagarade baradayado sekeliam bradea yetozia. Yes, there's another level higher than where I am right now. Father, by the Holy Ghost, empower my prayer and fasting life to the next level so I can keep growing in power and commanding higher levels of spiritual authority. Adazozi yakotagarade baradayado tendesie yakoradesha yabradekotagara. Lift your voice, pray in the Holy Ghost. Radekota yadose yekuskata reketekerea yambradeko yakotagarade yesuse yabrade. I must keep changing level. Arade zuse keka riarada. That whatever I say yes to answers, whatever I say no to answers. That I place and the atmosphere changes. Lord, I cry out unto you this morning by the Holy Ghost. Empower my prayer and fasting life to next levels so I can continue to grow in power and command higher levels of spiritual authority. Wave your hands and give God thanks this morning. He has heard you and I. In Jesus' mighty name. Amen. Please be seated. My case is different, and let the Redeemer of the Lord say so. We shall rise up again shortly to say this prayer. Father, in the name of Jesus, let there be a massive influx of multitudes into our midweek service today, and grant every worshiper an encounter with your word for their desired turnaround. Isaiah chapter 9 verse 8, the Bible says the Lord sent a word into Jacob, and it had lighted upon Israel. Shall we rise upon our feet therefore and pray, saying, Father, in the name of Jesus, let there be a massive influx of multitudes into our midweek service today, and grant every worshiper an encounter with your word for their desired turnaround. Are you praying this morning? Let's God hear your voice of intercession. In the name of Jesus, let there be a massive influx of multitudes from far and near into our midweek service today. Nothing shall succeed in hindering the influx of multitude into the midweek service today. In the name of Jesus, Maleze kusa posada, ekapazeketekete. The people shall flow in droves from far and near. In the name of Jesus, Malezakata, ekopashezize, enkapolaba. Father, in the name of Jesus, let there be a massive influx of multitudes, both of men and women, old and young, into our midweek service today, and grant every worshiper an encounter with the word for their desired turnaround. Are you praying this morning? Malezakata, ekapozize, elampradaba, masheko zekete, mazikota. We receive now massive influx of multitude into our midweek service today. In the name of Jesus, Malezaza, enkaposhada, erizakota. Grant every worshiper as we drive them into the service today an encounter with your word for their desired turnaround. In the name of Jesus, you sent a word into Jacob, and it had lighted upon Israel. Masekopa, ekazese, elizata, the sent word, let it impart upon every single worshiper in the midweek communion service tonight for their desired turnaround. In the name of Jesus, Maliza, Ekopaya, Eliza Kata, Lerupa Shesuza, Ekopasa, Enkalabosada, Omasekete. Our Father, we pray in the name of Jesus that there shall be an influx of great multitude into the midweek service today, in the name of Jesus. And as a con, grant every worshiper a life-changing encounter with your sent word. Grant every worshiper turn around by the power of your word. In the name of Jesus, no one shall return the same. No one shall return the same. Your word shall come like torrents of rain, causing desired turnaround for each worshiper tonight. In the name of Jesus, Maleza, Ekopazekete. You can drive home this prayer in the Holy Ghost. Maliza kata, Ekoshada, Empradaba, Mazize, Ekopazakata, Ekezikete Boshiza, Malempradabosha, Enkapozekete, Mazekozakata. Multitudes shall gather from far and near into the midweek service tonight in the name of Jesus, and every worshiper shall receive a life-transforming encounter with the sent word tonight at the midweek service in the name of Jesus. Maleziza, Enkaposha, Mazeketekete, Eribaya, Malezekete, Mazuza, Ekopashezekete, Malizakata. We know it shall be as you have said, you have heard, you have answered. We receive the multitude, we receive the sent word for our turnaround. Father, we thank you. Lift your hands and appreciate him. Give him praise. In Jesus' name we pray. Please be seated.
case is different, let the redeemed of the Lord say so. It is testimony time. Please listen to the following documented testimonies and be blessed. Number 1, Shiloh 2016, indeed my case is different. I came to Shiloh with great expectation regarding my business expanding exponentially in 2017 and beyond. Among other prayer points, having left paid employment since last year, December. Of course, I had challenges, but God came through for me, for which I am grateful. While at Shiloh, I received a phone call to discuss letting the office to me. This was after Papa said, we will receive phone calls with good news. I continued Shiloh with thanksgiving. I knew we were going really big and I needed an office and was becoming a bit concerned, but God gave me peace that whatever I asked at Shiloh was done. So I keyed into that. On the last day of Shiloh, I made a promise of some money I was expecting, but I told the Lord, I will not wait for the money to come in. I will take from my daughter's school fees next term, pay the sacrifice, and replace when mine comes through. Even before I transferred the money, I took possession of our new office in Lekki Phase 1, rent-free. Give Jesus a good clap. I am truly humbled by the sudden act of God. The testifier is Wana Doshima Doku. Number 2, miracle baby for my 40th birthday. I waited on the Lord for the fruit of the womb from 2014. At that time, series of medical tests were done. As I was coming in for one of the midweek services, Bishop David Oyedepo said, the blood that needs to stop in your life must stop today. I shouted a thunderous amen and keyed into the declaration. Then Bishop said, you will have another opportunity in this second phase of Wonder Double Agenda if you are totally committed to it. Every Saturday, I dressed in my maternity gown to Covenant Hour of Prayer and made sure I did not miss it on other days. I participated in evangelism to win souls. I distributed flyers in the office, marketplaces, bus stops, streets, etc. Even when my boss stopped me from giving out flyers in the office, I still shared them. After being engaged in all this, I went to my doctor for checkup. However, when he said I should go for some tests that would cost me thousands of naira, I told my husband I won't be an ATM machine to any doctor again. Whatever God cannot do, let it remain undone. Miraculously, the following month, my menstruation stopped for the first time in my life. Thereafter, God gave me my miracle, favor, Oladomola Olakonye, on May 31st, 2016, to mark my 40th birthday. Give Jesus a good clap. Hallelujah. I give God all the praise. The testifier is Toyin Olasende Olakonye. Let's rise up together and celebrate God for the great testimonies He has done in our midst.
Lift your voice and give Him thanks more profusely from the depth of your heart. Father, we have come this morning and we are grateful for your mighty doings in our midst. We celebrate you, Jesus. We honor and glorify your holy name. You are worthy of all the praise and of all the glory, all the honor and of all the adoration. Le rose bradi katanando labando kashada balaria banando zuzia. We thank you, Lord Jesus. We bless your holy name. You are worthy, and you are worthy. Accept our thanksgiving, Lord. Now begin to ask the Lord to speak to you this morning by His word. Lord, speak to me this morning and do so by your word. Speak to me this morning by your word. Transform my life this morning by your word. Open a new chapter to me this morning by your word. Thank you, mighty God. Blessed be your holy name. In Jesus' precious name we have prayed. Father, we have come before you this morning with gratitude for the opportunity to stand in your presence. Thank you for your mighty doings in our midst, the confirmation of your good hand among us. We have come to say we are grateful. Accept our thanksgiving in the name of Jesus. Lord, speak to us again and transform us. In Jesus' precious name we have prayed. And somebody believes, say aloud, amen. Give Jesus a big hand, and please, you may be seated in his presence. My case is different, and let the name of the Lord say so. We have been looking at this line of exhortations all through this week, understanding the mystery of thanksgiving. Understanding the mystery of thanksgiving. We have been able to establish the fact that the kingdom of God is a kingdom of mysteries. It means that it's a kingdom of hidden secrets. That behind every simple kingdom commandment, there are hidden kingdom mysteries. And it is our comprehension of those hidden secrets that determines our experience as we engage those kingdom commandments. One of those kingdom commandments is that commandment of thanksgiving. And we began by capturing a definition of thanksgiving from Psalm 69, verse 30 and 31. I will praise the Lord God with the name of the Lord God with a song, and will magnify him with thanksgiving. This also shall please the Lord better than an ox or bullock that has horns and hoofs. And we saw clearly that thanksgiving is magnifying God, making a big deal out of the acts of God, giving focus and emphasis to God's doings in our midst. We also saw that thanksgiving is pleasing unto God. And we have been uncovering further details of this mystery according to scriptures. And this morning, I'd like us to look at these very important facts as it concerns thanksgiving. First of all, recognize that whatever God does is ordained to be forever. The Bible says in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and verse 14, whatever the Lord doeth, it shall be forever. Nothing can be put to it, nor anything taken away from it. For God doeth it, that men should fear before him. So the doings of God are ordained to be forever. They are ordained to be forever. Nothing is expected to tamper with God's doings. However, according to scriptures, there are spiritual forces that ensure the sustenance of the doings of God. And one of those spiritual forces is the force of thanksgiving. In Malachi chapter 2, verse 1 to 3, he said, this commandment is for you, ye priests. He said, if you will not lay it to heart to give glory to my name, he said, I will even send a curse upon you and curse your blessings. Ye have cursed them already because ye do not lay it to heart. In other words, God is saying, these blessings in your direction, but your thanksgiving is what preserves it as a blessing. Therefore, we can say that thanksgiving is our spiritual preservative of God's blessings upon our lives. It is our spiritual preservative. In the book of Jeremiah chapter 13 and verse 16, the Bible makes us to understand Jeremiah 13 and verse 16. It said, give glory to the Lord your God before he cause darkness, and before your feet stumble upon the dark mountains. While you look for light, he turn it to the shadow of death and make it gross darkness. Give glory before. Give glory before. In other words, there is a time limit. Give glory before it causes darkness. Give glory before your feet begin to stumble. Give glory before it turns your light to darkness. Give glory before you find yourself operating in gross darkness. In other words, we must be swift in thanking God. We must be swift in offering appreciation to God. We must be quick in giving glory to God, because the blessing of God can only be sustained by our swift thanksgiving. Shout hallelujah. I say shout hallelujah. It can only be sustained by our swift thanksgiving. We must be quick to it. Whatever you want to preserve, you must quickly ensure that you create the environment for its preservation. You must quickly ensure. There are things that must not be left out for any period of time, or else it will begin to get corrupted. Like we usually use the example, or you have tomatoes. You must quickly preserve it. That's why you see a woman will quickly grind tomatoes, put it inside a container and put it inside the freezer. Why? Because if she's not quick about it, it will get corrupted. In the same way, God blesses you. If you are not quick to thank, it can quickly get corrupted. The blessing of God is ordained to be forever, but the preservation of that blessing is dependent on our appreciation. The preservation of that blessing is dependent on our appreciation. In the book of Psalm chapter 28, 5, the Bible puts it this way, Psalm 28 and verse 5, because you regard not the works of the Lord, nor the operation of his hands. He shall destroy them and not build them up. Because you didn't count it as anything. There are many times that we discount God's doings. And what you don't count to be worth anything, God is not committed to sustaining. It is our gratitude that determines God's sustenance of our blessings. And remember, there is nothing you can physically do to keep his blessing. It is only God that can defend the blessing. The Bible says in the book of Psalm 127 verse 1, except the Lord build the house, the laborer is building in vain. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman is wasting his time. So it takes the defense and the keeping of God for anything around your life to be preserved. And that is why we must be swift to give God thanks. Thanksgiving, therefore, is a vital necessity for the preservation of every blessing upon our lives. And when you begin to count the blessings of God in your life, you will see the necessity of thanksgiving. I love the story that was told about a man who went to a pastor and told the pastor, "Pastor, nothing is working in my life." And the pastor said, "Are you sure?" He said, "I'm telling you, nothing is working." He said, "Pastor, what?" He said, the pastor asked him, "What is not working?" He said, "Number one, I'm not married." He said, "Okay, let's write it down. Not married. What else is not working?" "I don't have a job." "No job." He began to list out several things that were not working. And then the pastor began to ask the man, "Okay, is your kidney working?" The man said, "Yes, kidney is working." He said, "Kidney working." He said, "Okay, is your liver working?" Liver working. "Is your heart still beating?" "Heart is beating." "Heart beating." And began to write all the vital organs of his body. And the pastor divided a line between what was not working and what was working. He said, "Okay, we can pray a simple prayer. Let what is not working start working, and what is working stop working." And the man shouted, "That means you want to kill me." So what was working was more important than what he saw that was not working. At every point in time, what is working for you is greater than what is working against you. And that is why you must be quick to begin to give God the glory for every good doing. Can you imagine somebody's heart has not skipped a beat, and you have been living for the last 40 years? Your heart has not stopped beating. That is God sustaining it. Your kidney has not stopped working. That is God keeping it. Your liver has not broken down. That is God sustaining it. Your lungs are still inhaling and exhaling. That is the working of the wonder-working God. And that is why we owe him all the praise and we owe him all the glory, because of his marvelous doings in our midst. Shout hallelujah. Now, what kind of thanksgiving is pleasing unto God? We'll look at just a few quick truths here concerning thanksgiving that pleases God. Number one, it is thanking God joyfully that pleases God. thanking God joyfully. Is anyone merry? Let him sing. Thanking God joyfully is what pleases God. James chapter 5 verse 13, Ephesians 5 also verse 18 down to verse 20. He said, don't be drunk with wine, but be filled with the Spirit, speaking to yourself in psalms, in hymns, in spiritual songs, making melody in your heart unto the Lord. He said, giving thanks always for all things. So it takes melody in your heart, a singing heart, a joyful heart, to give God thanks appropriately. Giving thanks always unto God the Father for all things. So we must come to the point where we are grateful to God with joyfulness of heart. Joyfulness of heart. Remember the scripture said, because you serve not the Lord with gladness and joyfulness of heart, he said you will serve your enemies, but that will not be your portion in the name of Jesus. Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 47 and verse 48. So you thank him joyfully. Number two, you thank him continuously. Continuously. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. Psalm 34 verse 1 to 3. I will bless him at all times. There is no time that is not Thanksgiving time. He said, his praise shall continually be in my mouth. He said, my soul shall make a boast in the Lord. The humble shall hear of it and be glad. He said in verse 3, oh, magnify the Lord with me and let us exalt his name forever. So we must continuously give him thanks. Never be tired of giving God thanks, because God is not tired of working on your behalf. Shout hallelujah. I said shout hallelujah. So thank him continually, and finally thank him expectantly. Thank him expectantly. In other words, your thanksgiving should always also be in anticipation of what he would do, because God never gives commandment without benefit. If he says give thanks, then he has other blessings and benefits that he has in store for us. That is why the scripture says to us in Proverbs 23 and verse 18, he said, the expectation of the upright shall not be cut off. So you thank him expectantly, celebrating him expectantly. Out of the 10 lepers, one returned back. Even though he was not made whole yet, he began to celebrate with a loud voice for the cleansing that he had seen, anticipating the wholeness he was expecting. So we thank him expectantly, knowing that he that has promised is faithful to also deliver. These three truths concerning our thanksgiving will not only see to the preservation of our blessing, but to the release of our further blessings. Shout hallelujah. Is somebody ready to thank God this morning? Would you rise on your feet with me and lift up your voice for all that is working on your behalf? Lift your voice and begin to give God thanks this morning. Appreciate him, glorify him, celebrate him for all that is working on your behalf. Your faithfulness is everlasting. My Father, I've come before you today. Lift up your voice and give God the glory. Give God the glory. Give God the glory for his faithfulness in your life, for his faithfulness in every department of your life. Our God is a good God. Rekanto shambra dambalake tompe fediam bradekona. Oh, my Father, I've come this morning to thank you, Lord, for your blessing in every department of my life. Lerushendeleke tumbamba baba, embredeke tumbani angalada, lerosuke telengredia katanoga, erumba baba kaloshadi aganda. Oh, I've come to give you praise and glory and honor and adoration. You are worthy of all the praise for all of your marvelous acts in my life. I thank you for the blessing of preservation and sustenance all through this year. Your hand has been mighty upon my life. I've come this morning to say, Father, I am grateful. I'm thankful. I don't take your doing for granted. Le rabana keto shapa naglea baradokata. Engredi ketombarabala bradiketonaba. Embranando la barange teliangarado. Shaperi ambarande leke zuzia. Ambaneta, leprondi ambarakalo, shapendre di katana, ele barambora bande lekredie kenosa. Oh, my Father, I've come this morning with gratitude in my heart to glorify your holy name. Your doings are marvelous. Your doings are glorious. Your doings, oh Lord, are wonderful in every department of my life. I've come today to say I'm grateful. Labanakatosha, emeneneketelia, laprano, embanokato, lebrediengelika talato, embradiangalaro shabana, enkeferiambara bredegelike nemana managalado, ekandorabande reketos yangaladabo. Embrandele kezuzia shapanandi agalado kata embranda labana katali ambarado kamana. My Father, I have come today to give you praise and glory and honor and adoration. You are worthy of all the praise and of all the glory. Irabanakatuzia Irande rike suziam baradaba lerusha tekenderiam brandeke tozam baraba. Oh, my Father, I have come to give you praise and give you glory and give you honor for your faithfulness in every department of my life. You are good. You are good. You are faithful. Now begin to thank him in anticipation. Thank him with expectation for what he will yet do. Thank him with expectation for what he will yet do. According to your word, Lord, you are not through with me yet. Concerning this year, you still have greater loads of blessings awaiting me this year. Therefore, Lord, I've come today to thank you for the blessings you have waiting in store for me. For the favors you have waiting in store for me, for the breakthroughs you have waiting in store for me, for the turnarounds you have waiting in store for me, for the liftings you have waiting in store for me, for the unction you have waiting in store for me. La pradeketo shangarara mambro dekete niaba, for the power you have waiting in store for me, for the authority waiting in store for me in this season. I've come this morning to say, my Father, I am grateful. I give you the praise. I give you the glory for all of your doings in my life. I celebrate you, Lord. Rekoshamana katalia lembrada, for the graces you have waiting in store for me, oh Lord. My Father, I am grateful. Would you lift your hand to heaven and give him thanks in the spirit right now? Liru shabana katalambro membrana katomanda arekeshiangara bandaka elembrodiyangara dakalo shambrande reketezizia aferiambaradombala katala embrada karada shatala embrado kozuzia embreneketo shabaradala lekrandere kento shaba. Oh yes, Lord, blessed be your name, Father. You are worthy of all the praise. I give you glory. Thank you, mighty God. In Jesus' precious name we have prayed. As you have given him thanks, every one of the benefits, the acts of thanksgiving answers for you in the name of Jesus Christ. Somebody believe, say a loud amen. I said somebody believe, say a loud amen. Every benefit and blessing that accrues to thanksgivers becomes your portion in the name of Jesus. So shall it be. In Jesus' precious name. And you believe, say the loudest amen. Let's be reminded today we're waiting on the Lord as our custom is. And remember, this evening we'll be having the last midweek service for the year 2016. Hallelujah. Praise God. Come ready, come expectant. Remember, in God's program, he always packages the best for the last. So come ready to receive what God has in store for you as we begin to get set for what he'll be doing ahead in the new year. Be expectant and be ready, and you shall be blessed in the name of Jesus. Make the most of the day, and I see the Lord honoring your faith and your obedience in Jesus' precious name. Let us share the goodness of the Lord together. Surely God's goodness and mercy shall follow us all the days of our lives, and we shall dwell in the presence of the Lord forever Amen. Peace. My case is different, and let the Redeemer of the Lord say, congratulations. Congratulate somebody as you go. Be blessed.